Hello, this is Jill with my almost 6 month semi-retirement update. If you've just stumbled upon this video, I ran my own naturopathic business for 34 years, and almost 6 months ago, I made the move to semi-retirement. I have friends and colleagues asking how I'm going, as well as clients. So I just did a 3 month update, and I'll tell you how things are going at 6 months, because I think it's really important for those who are self-employed to have a little bit of a case study of what it's like when you've been a sole trader, you're self-employed, because our transition to retirement can be quite different to those who are traditionally employed. So semi-retirement. I've got two little sidelines that I am continuing that do not take the sort of time that clinical practice does. One is mentoring, and so if you're a health professional who would like some business or clinical mentoring for somebody who's been at the coalface for a long time, then I'm still here to support you. But also, 13 years ago, or almost 12 and a half years ago, when I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, my life took quite a turn. And in about 2017, when, to be honest, I realized I was probably going to live and not go into recurrence like many with my type of cancer, I kind of wondered how I could find a silver lining in that experience. And I trained and researched and became what's sometimes referred to as a consumer and research, or research advocate, which is a bit nicer. So what I've been doing since 2018 is working with both institutions and individual researchers, and sometimes their labs, to represent what it's like to live with a particular cancer and to work together so that we can make the experiences for all people a lot better and a lot more informed. So this little quite big project, I have been actually semi-employed as a consumer team leader in at University of Newcastle, is now wrapping up after over 5 years. And so at the moment there's a bit of, sorry about the jiggle there, there's been quite a bit of wrapping up work to do, which is meaning a few busy weeks while I actually work. I actually work. The volunteer side of that, I work with, as I said, some institutions and individuals, and over the last couple of months I'd say that my average amount of volunteer time would be 22 hours a month, and some of that's going to events. I've been lucky. One of the events I went to, which was actually aimed at early in mid-career health researchers, was Karl Krushenitsky actually teaching people how to use audiovisual equipment and make great presentations. And boy, do I wish that I had seen something like that 34 years ago. I don't know if this video is actually representative of what Karl was teaching, so apologies, Karl. So the other side of things is, like, at 3 months I did a video, and I had done a lot of travel. I spent most of December in wonderful Penang, and after that I had 2 road trips in New South Wales and down to Victoria, and it was summer. And I suppose what happened next was beginning of April. Beginning of April was Easter. It was school holidays, and my world went quiet. There weren't any consumer engagements. There wasn't any mentoring for those few weeks. And, it was kind of like, is this what full retirement would be like? And I don't know if I like that. Then shortly after that, the volunteer and the other kind of side hustles got busier. So I didn't then just say, hey, this is never going to happen again. I sat down and thought, and I realized a couple of months ago, I thought, I'm just waiting for my new rhythm to come. It will find me. And actually, I realize now at almost 6 months is that you actually have to create your rhythm. And there's four things that I realise are really, really important in my daily and weekly life. And they were always there before semi-retirement, but they become even more important when you walk away from a previous structure of how you kind of led your life. So the first one is really paramount to me, and that is community and connection. Having human connection, being part of something greater, being a good neighbour, being a good friend. I try to be. Doesn't always succeed. We're only human. Um, being actively involved in communities, and I'm involved in my cancer community and the consumer community on pretty big scale. And I think my superpower is I really like connecting people. I really like. So one of the things that I've done with some of the amazing researchers I work with, particularly if they're solo or unsupported in their institution, is to say, you're doing similar work to this person. And not just that, you both have a very similar vibe. You're both kind of understated. Would you like me to hook you up to have a coffee and a chat? And in those circumstances where people get together, it's pretty amazing because it actually serves my community more. We want our researchers to talk to each other, not to duplicate research, to collaborate. So that's part of my community and connection. The other thing is obviously movement. Retirement comes as we get a little bit older, and one kind of both my connection and movement cornerstones is yoga one-on-one every week with the lovely Cindy, and we usually have 10 or 15 minutes of catch up before the class. And but that's kind of so my body doesn't seize up, and I've been doing this for quite a few years now, and it's a fantastic investment. But I need more movement other than walking every day. I try to do 40 to 70 minutes of walking a day, but I need more. Creativity. So creativity is sometimes cooking something new. It might be writing. It might be going down a rabbit hole of investigation. It may be dreaming. But I think that's something in my life that I have more space for, and not necessarily doing any big plans, not making any big announcements sort of thing, but I would just like to nurture that part of me and maybe do some things outside of my comfort zone. And of course, my mind. So curiosity, keeping mind active, and a lot of that actually comes from these consumer engagements. That it's actually volunteering week. It's the week that we celebrate volunteers, and I'm a bit of a cliche here. Often volunteering is sold as we're helping others, we're doing our bit. But anyone who's embedded in the volunteer world will say they do it because they get so much out of it. And I certainly get so much out of it on so many levels when I do this research, advocacy, consumer work. So the one other thing I have been asked a lot is, do I miss clinical practice? I'll let you into a secret. There's a yes and no here. I actually don't miss clinical practice, but I really miss some of my clients who I have known often for decades on and off. And it's that kind of weird thing of the story stopping. So if you're one of my long-time clients, just know I have not forgotten you, and I'm championing your health and life and pursuits quietly in my head, and I hope you're well. So that's listening. Thanks for listening. If you want another update in 3 months, let me know. Have a great day.